a new member of the Order of Canada. That is the current for this Tuesday, the 28th of January. Q is up next on CBC Radio 1. If you missed anything on the program, including perhaps the conversation that we had at the beginning about doctors who are triaging their patients because they have too many patients and not enough time. And so in Alberta, there's new guidance that is suggesting that doctors can go about perhaps losing some of the patients who are healthiest and sticking with those who are sickest. You can hear that conversation on our podcast. Get that through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, or on the CBC Listen app. In the meantime, we'd love to hear from you after you listen to that. If you're a doctor who's been involved in that triage, let us know. And if you're a patient who's been dropped, let us know as well. You can email us, thecurrent@cbc.ca. I'm Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.
This is CBC Radio 1, 104.7 FM in the West End. Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned protesters repeatedly.
CBC News brings the story to you live.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canada.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca. The CBC News is next, followed by Q.
The Montreal comedian Sugar Sammy is back in Canada on a 2023 tour. The multilingual equal opportunity offender will be here to talk about what's on his mind this time out and to give his no-holds-barred view of the state of the world and comedy today.
This is CBC News. Good morning, it is 10 o'clock. I'm Sean Long, CBC News from Montreal. We start with politics at this hour. The final report being released today from the public inquiry into foreign interference. It'll include recommendations on what steps need to be taken to better protect Canadian democracy. But as Janice McGregor tells us, implementing those recommendations before the next federal election will be difficult, if not impossible.
If the commissioner recommends things that require legislation, well, it's hard to imagine that passing before the House of Commons pulls the plug this spring and heads to the polls. A bill with some changes that authorities wanted died when Parliament was prorogued. A new foreign influence transparency registry became law last June, but no commissioner was appointed since to do that work. So the fixes are slow here while the new threats pop up quickly. That's not to say that some vulnerabilities aren't being addressed. For example, after a barrage of criticism, the Liberal Party reversed itself, and only Canadian citizens and permanent residents now are voting in the race on this spring to pick the next Prime Minister. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
Back here in Quebec, the Legault government is set to table a law this week dealing with how Quebec newcomers should integrate into society. It's expected to affirm that Quebecers will have a common language and a common culture, and people need to integrate into that society. Now, we do not have the details yet, but in a social media video put out yesterday, Immigration Minister Jean-François Robert says the bill is going to define who Quebecers are and how Quebec wants to develop as a nation. He says it'll revolve around common values such as secularism, democracy, gender equality, and most importantly, the French language. He says the new law will provide a unifying social contract to bring together all Quebecers under one common culture. Police and school bus drivers are calling for other drivers to be more careful in school zones and around buses. Didier Deramont is the general director of the Association of Quebec Police Chiefs. He says 320 youngsters were victims of incidents related to school transportation back in 2023.
We're talking about the child